Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
The Smiths' house was a place where laughter seemed to settle in. In a peaceful neighborhood filled with trees and wide streets, lived the family that many saw as a model. Adam and Laura had created the kind of home that made people believe happiness was within everyone's reach. It was the kind of place where the smell of fresh coffee in the morning blended with the sound of birds, while sunlight poured through the living room's large windows, bathing everything in a golden glow. Adam was the first one up every day. With his methodical personality, he followed an almost sacred routine, making coffee, checking his emails, and organizing his work schedule. He was a dedicated engineer whose attention to detail went beyond his job. He insisted on being present for his kids, actively participating in every small achievement of Emma and Lucas. In everyone's eyes, he was the picture of a perfect dad, protective, playful, and always ready to help. Laura, on the other hand, was a woman full of vibrant energy. As an analyst at a renowned bank, she balanced her career and family life with a lightness that inspired everyone around her. She had a way of turning routine into something special. When she was home, she liked to play classical music while cooking, creating a cozy environment that seemed to wrap everyone in a warm embrace. Her dishes weren't just tasty, they were a gesture of affection that showed, without words, how much she cherished every moment with her family. Their kids, Emma and Lucas, were the life of the house. 13-year-old Emma carried her camera everywhere, as if she saw the world through magical lenses. Her eyes lit up whenever she caught the perfect sunset or someone's natural expression in a spontaneous moment. 10-year-old Lucas, on the other hand, already showed an extraordinary talent for drawing. His comics weren't just random scribbles, they were real stories that took readers to imaginary worlds filled with heroes and epic adventures. The Smiths' house was always busy. Emma had soccer practice that made her run through the living room with her backpack, while Lucas left colored pencil marks on tables and even on walls, a habit that made Laura and Adam feel both exasperation and pride. On weekends, the place turned into pure fun. Adam, wearing his apron, manned the barbecue in the backyard, while Laura oversaw the kitchen, making side dishes that always disappeared before she could even taste them. The sound of the four of them laughing echoed around the neighborhood, a living reminder that true happiness was built in little moments. At night, before bed, the family had the habit of gathering in the living room for movie marathons. The choices varied, but the ritual was always the same: blankets spread out on the couch, hot popcorn in huge bowls, and heated debates about who had picked the best movie. In those moments, it felt like nothing in the world could break the harmony that united them. They laughed together, shared stories, and, above all, felt connected. The Smiths' home was a fortress of love and companionship, where each person had the freedom to be themselves and where family bonds seemed unbreakable. Adam and Laura always made a point of teaching their kids that family life was built on mutual support, respect, and patience. Time seemed to stand still at those moments, as though nothing could change the course of their happiness. But as life often shows, sometimes the biggest challenges arise in the places that seem the steadiest. Without anyone noticing, small cracks began to form in that seemingly perfect structure. Mornings at the Smiths' house kept the usual rhythm, but Adam began to notice something different about Laura. Tiny changes, almost invisible to anyone who didn't know her as well as he did, started adding up. She was still the devoted mother and loving wife she'd always been, but there were moments when she seemed far away, even if she was right there. It was her small gestures that grabbed his attention the most: the distant looks out the window during breakfast, the smiles that seemed weighed down by distant thoughts, and the long sighs she let out for no clear reason. Adam, with his practical mind, at first chalked it up to exhaustion. Laura had always been a strong woman, but her work as an analyst was demanding. He figured maybe the new responsibilities at the office were taking more out of her than she cared to admit. But the changes didn't stop there. Suddenly, Laura started dressing differently for work. It wasn't anything flashy or over the top, but there was a special care he hadn't seen in years. She began buying new clothes, investing in more sophisticated makeup, and even trying perfumes she hadn't used since college. "You look beautiful today," Adam commented one morning, trying to get her attention. Laura thanked him with a rushed smile, but her eyes didn't meet his like they usually did. He felt a tightness in his chest but pushed the thought aside. There was no reason to suspect anything. After all, they had been together for over 15 years. Their relationship, though not perfect, had always been based on trust and companionship. However, as the days went by, Laura started getting home later. The family dinners, once sacred, were replaced by quick text messages saying she was stuck in a meeting or finishing an urgent report. Emma and Lucas noticed their mom's absence but accepted the explanations without question. Adam, on the other hand, started feeling the weight of doubt. Something was shifting, and he had no idea what it was. One night, while Laura was in the shower, Adam noticed something unusual on her desk. Among bank papers and notes, there was a business card belonging to someone named Ethan Blake. The name meant nothing to him, but the card had a sleek design, clearly from someone important. Adam put it back exactly where he found it, feeling guilty for invading her space, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this name was more than just a coworker. In the following days, the name Ethan began to pop up casually in Laura's conversations. She mentioned projects they were working on together, praised his leadership skills, and even laughed at jokes he made at the office. Adam, trying to be a good husband, listened closely and did his best not to let his imagination run wild. But something in his gut bothered him. It wasn't just the fact that she was talking about Ethan, it was the way she spoke, as if there was a growing admiration that went beyond work. The height of Adam's uneasiness arrived on a quiet evening. Laura, distracted on the couch with her phone, let out a soft laugh. "What's so funny?" Adam asked, curious. "Oh, nothing much. Ethan sent a funny message about today's project," she answered, without taking her eyes off the screen. Adam felt his stomach turn. It was a new feeling for him, a mix of jealousy and worry, but he still said nothing. He preferred to keep his concerns to himself, hoping this was all in his head. That same night, while Laura slept soundly next to him, Adam lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Questions filled his mind like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Could it be that Laura was just stressed out from work and found in Ethan a friend to relieve the pressure? Or was there something more, something he didn't even want to consider? Without any answers, he turned over in bed, trying to ignore the growing feeling that something important in his life was about to change. Ethan Blake wasn't just a name on a business card or a distant figure Laura mentioned. He was a striking, almost magnetic presence who quickly won over everyone around him. His arrival at Laura's office had been a big deal. He was the kind of person who knew how to stand out, cheerful, confident, and always ready with a witty reply. His ability to lead teams and inspire his colleagues was undeniable, and he seemed to know exactly how to captivate each person he met. For Laura, Ethan was initially just another coworker. But working together on meetings and shared projects created a closeness that hadn't existed before. Over the course of weeks, they worked side by side, talking strategy, polishing reports, and, during breaks, exchanging personal stories. Ethan had a knack for making people feel special, and Laura, who had been silently feeling disconnected in her life, wasn't immune to that. Things at the office shifted even more when Ethan arranged a corporate retreat. It was something he had suggested to improve team cohesion, and management approved the idea right away. Laura hesitated, worried about how it would affect things at home, but Adam encouraged her. "You deserve some time for yourself," he said, not knowing that decision would open a new chapter in their story. The retreat took place at a luxurious resort, away from the city's hustle. Laura, initially uncomfortable, soon found herself enchanted by the place. It had a lively energy, with activities ranging from group sessions to moments of relaxation by the pool. Ethan, as the host, was in his element. He moved around the area with ease, making everyone laugh, praising ideas, and ensuring each person felt appreciated. During one of the activities, Laura and Ethan were put on the same team in a competitive challenge. The way he led, blending charisma and assertiveness, impressed Laura. She realized she was smiling more than usual, laughing at jokes that might not even be that funny, but that brought a lightness she hadn't felt in ages. That evening, there was a formal dinner. Laura wore one of her best dresses, something she rarely did. When she went downstairs, she felt people's eyes on her, but the only look that really mattered was Ethan's. He greeted her with a smile that seemed to hold more than words. During dinner, they sat close, talking about work and eventually more personal topics. Ethan talked about his dreams, his travels, and even his disappointments, creating a bond Laura hadn't anticipated. The most memorable moment of the night came when the music started. Casually, Ethan held out his hand to Laura. "Want to dance?" he asked, as if there were nothing unusual about the invitation. She hesitated for a second but said yes. They danced briefly, without any move that could be seen as inappropriate, yet their closeness left Laura feeling uneasy. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, a spark of excitement that made her question everything she knew about herself. When the retreat ended, Laura returned home with conflicting emotions. She loved Adam, she was sure of that, but she couldn't deny that something within her had changed. Ethan had awakened something she didn't even know was dormant, and it made her feel alive in a way she couldn't explain. Adam noticed her changed demeanor but had no idea what had happened at the retreat. He tried to connect with her, asking about her days away, but her answers were vague, almost evasive. It was nice, she'd say, smiling in a way that suggested she was hiding something more. Laura's change in behavior became more obvious in the following days. She started wearing the perfume she'd bought especially for the retreat, even at home. She spent more time getting ready before work, and her texts about late meetings became more frequent. Adam, however much he tried to dismiss it, felt that something was out of place, and the shadow of Ethan Blake seemed to hang over their home even though he had never seen him in person. It was a night like any other in the Smiths' home, but the silence between Adam and Laura was unusual. Adam sat in the living room, eyes on the TV, but his mind was somewhere else. He felt on the verge of discovering something that could change everything. Laura, meanwhile, seemed distant, absorbed in her phone while absent-mindedly running her fingers through her hair, a gesture Adam recognized as a sign of anxiety. Finally, he broke the silence. "Laura, we need to talk," he said, turning off the TV. She looked at him, surprised, but didn't speak. Adam took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I feel like something's changed between us. I'm not here to blame you or make accusations, but I can't ignore the fact that you're different. I want to understand what's going on." Laura hesitated, biting her lip before she finally spoke. "Adam, I don't know how to say this. I think I'm feeling lost. It's not about you, not exactly about us. It's about me. About what I want, about who I am now." Her answer hit Adam like a punch in the gut. He hadn't expected something so direct, but he stayed calm. "And what does that mean for us? Is there something I can do to help you feel better?" He tried not to sound desperate, but his voice showed how vulnerable he was feeling. Laura looked away, seeming to wrestle with her emotions. After a long pause, she finally said, "I think I need to be honest with you about something. At work, there's this person. Ethan. There's nothing going on between us, but he made me realize things about myself I hadn't noticed. I'm not sure how I feel, but this whole situation has made me question our marriage, my life, everything." It felt like the ground was collapsing under Adam's feet. He stayed frozen, trying to process what he'd just heard. Ethan's name, once only a shadow in his mind, now took center stage. He felt a mix of anger, sadness, and, most of all, fear. "Are you saying you're considering something with him?" Adam asked, his voice quiet but filled with emotion. Laura shook her head, tears beginning to roll down her cheeks. I don't know, Adam. I don't want to hurt you, but I also can't ignore what I'm feeling. That's why I want to suggest something. Maybe if I had one night with him, I could understand better what I really feel. I know it sounds awful, but it's the only way I can think of to clear my head. For a moment, Adam thought he misheard. He blinked a few times, waiting for her words to rearrange themselves into something more reasonable. But no. She really was proposing that. The woman he'd built a life with, someone he shared a family and a history with, was suggesting something that challenged everything he believed in. He stood up, unable to stay seated. Laura, do you realize what you're asking? You're talking about destroying everything we've built because you're curious? How do you think that'll help us? Laura was crying now, her sobs interrupting her words. I don't know, Adam. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing control of myself. I just know I can't keep living like nothing's wrong. He looked at her, eyes locked on hers, searching for the woman he once knew. He wanted to yell, to cry, to beg her to change her mind, but instead he took a deep breath. I need some time to process this, he said, his voice turning cold. But, Laura, if you really believe that's the solution, maybe we've already lost more than I realized. He walked away, heading for the bedroom. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached the room, he closed the door and sat on the bed, head in his hands. He had no idea what to do. The woman he loved was slipping through his fingers, and he had no idea how to hold on without losing himself in the process. Laura stayed in the living room, alone, tears streaming down her face. She knew she'd hurt Adam, but she also knew she couldn't keep living under the weight of her doubts. The house, once a refuge of love and laughter, now felt strange, filled with suffocating tension. The days following that conversation were marked by a deafening silence. Adam and Laura still shared the same house, but it felt like they were living in completely separate worlds. He threw himself into his work, trying to distract his mind from the turmoil at home, while she spent more time at the office, avoiding direct confrontations. For Emma and Lucas, nothing seemed off. Their parents were still there, but the telling looks and long silences didn't go unnoticed by Emma's keen eyes. One night, while Adam was in the bedroom going over some documents, Laura walked in and shut the door behind her. She seemed nervous yet determined. Adam, expecting any kind of difficult conversation, looked up, ready to hear what she had to say. Adam, I made a decision, she began, her voice shaking but firm. I won't do anything with Ethan. I'm not going to try to figure out my feelings that way. But I also can't ignore what all of this has shown me about us. Adam frowned, unsure whether to feel relieved or confused. And what does that mean, Laura? She took a deep breath, as though each word carried the weight of the world. It means we need to face the truth about our marriage. For a long time, we've been so focused on everything else, work, the kids, that we stopped looking at each other. I lost myself in the routine, and when Ethan showed up, he reminded me of who I used to be. Not because he's special, but because I realized how disconnected I've been from myself. Adam listened in silence, a knot forming in his throat. As much as Laura's words stung, there was a raw honesty in them that he couldn't ignore. He knew he was partly to blame. Work, responsibilities, routine, all of it had consumed the connection they once had. Laura, I'm not perfect, and I know there were many times I wasn't the husband you needed, Adam said, his voice trembling with emotion. But I never stopped loving you. I never stopped believing in us. Tears filled Laura's eyes. She sat down on the bed next to him and, for the first time in weeks, took his hand. I never stopped loving you either, Adam. But we need to find our way back. A way for both of us. In that moment, Adam realized that love, however strong, wasn't enough without both of them trying. He knew rebuilding what they had wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to try. The next morning, while Laura was still asleep, Adam made a plan. He spent hours preparing something special, something that would remind them why they had chosen each other in the first place. He spoke to Emma and Lucas, explaining he needed a day with Laura, just the two of them. The kids, who had sensed the tension, agreed without a second thought. When Laura woke up, she found a note by the bed, where something comfortable. "Today is just about us." Curious and a bit uneasy, she followed the instructions. When she went downstairs, she saw Adam waiting at the door with the car keys in hand. Without saying where they were going, he drove her to a small mountain cabin where they had spent their first weekend together back in the day. The place still had the same rustic charm, and Laura couldn't help but smile with nostalgia when she recognized it. They spent the day remembering old times, hiking on the trails, and talking in a way they hadn't in a long while. With no distractions and free from the rush of everyday life, they managed to reconnect in a way that felt lost. Laura opened up about her fears and insecurities, and Adam shared his regrets and hopes. That evening, as they watched the sunset together, Laura turned to Adam. "I know we have a long road ahead, but today reminded me why I chose you. No matter what happens, I want to fight for us." Adam held her hand tight, feeling a wave of relief and hope. "Me too, Laura. I'll always choose you." Their return home felt different. There were no promises that everything would be perfect, but there was a renewed commitment to face challenges side by side. Ethan, who once seemed like a symbol of their unraveling, became just a reminder of the things they needed to fix within themselves. Although painful, the experience had taught them a priceless lesson: love isn't just a feeling but a daily choice, made with effort, patience, and above all, honesty. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.